I know my calling, but I've been scared to come to the front. But this is who I am. I am a new age medicine woman. I am a new age shaman. I am a new age meditation teacher. I am a new age healer. I am a new age teacher. My abilities are God-given, and because I am the first of my kind currently in my current lineage, I've been shunned for who I am for so long that it has made me afraid to come to the forefront of what I know is my rightful place. But the good thing is I know who I am. I know what I came to do. I know who I came to be. I know how I need to exist. And that is just simply in my own existence. And to stop apologizing and being so apologetic for offending others when I'm simply just existing in my own existence. If you find yourself around other people that make you uncomfortable because you're existing in your own existence and you stepped into your own light, then that is a reminder and a signal and a really strong siren to remove your energetic body from the situation as soon as possible. You should never allow yourself to stay in places where you're disregarded or your feelings aren't heard and your thoughts aren't met with genuine interest and care. In the long run, none of them will be there. None of them will show up for you, and you'll wonder why you spent an elongated amount of time showing up for people who don't care about your well-being and your health and longevity. Because essentially and ultimately, you will be the person that pays in the long run. I say all that to say this. Most recently, my mother fell ill. Very, very unexpectedly, out of nowhere. And weeks before my mother fell ill, I came home to visit family. I'm from Kentucky, and visiting my family in Kentucky was a wrap-up for me. I was headed in the direction of the next chapter of my life, and I needed to release things with my biological parents, and I needed to really get to the root of my own existence. So I did some deep sea diving that included conversations with my parents and other family. As I made my rounds at my family's house, I was deeply rejected just in my existence, and I couldn't understand why. I was so because I was in a sensitive space at that time, I was so deeply offended and hurt because I was just looking for answers to unanswered questions. Long story short, September 4th, I met my mom, and I had spent 2 days with my biological dad. And he gave me his side of the story about my mother and his marriage. And we were supposed to meet my mother at a restaurant so we could sit down and talk. I'm 36. I've never sat down and talked to my parents, and I owed that to myself, and specifically, more intently, they owed that to me. Before we got to the restaurant, because he had already given me his side of the story at the house, he decided that he just couldn't go. So I knew it was a cop-out, and I knew he didn't want to heal. He had surrendered to the hell that he'd been living in for eternity. And my mom met me at the restaurant. My dad walked me inside. He saw my mom. I don't think he'd seen her in a long time. He spoke to her, and he left us. And immediately, I knew what happened. He left us. Regardless of his shortcomings and his mistakes, he did the same thing in that instance, in that moment, when it came time to be a responsible adult for the woman and the child that you brought into this scenario, in this world. He abandoned them. And I got so much closure in that one situation that it was unbelievable to me how one moment of me just listening to spirit and being obedient to Yahweh of the path that I needed to take, even though I had little understanding, one action in one moment answered a lifetime of questions. He was non-committal. He suffers from abandonment, so he abandons everything and everyone around him. And there's just no stability in it when it doesn't involve gain for him. And he saw no gain in the situation and still was living in a deep sense of shame. So he did what he did from day one, and he abandoned me at the restaurant after dropping me off with my luggage with my mom. And I immediately knew the pain that my mother had felt for all 36 years of my life, because this man married me in front of our whole family and friends, a church, white dress wedding, groomsmen, bridesmaids, our families conjoined, and you got me pregnant and abandoned me for your mistress. I have a brother that is 4 months older than me, and my parents were married legally. I say all that to say this. Where you come from matters. Where you come from makes up the story of exactly who you are. Even if you feel like, oh, where I come from doesn't really matter. Yes, the fuck it does. It all matters. It's like saying Antarctica doesn't matter on the map. All of the continents are placed on Earth for a reason. It's just the way that it is. Everything exists in its existence for a reason, and everything exists in its existence for a reason of the part that it's supposed to play. And when you don't get to the root of your existence, you will live a life of confusion. So that was one thing I got out of the way. I immediately had remorse for my mother. I immediately went into a thought process and a pattern of, wow, I had no idea. I didn't know. I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know. I didn't know where the anger was coming from all these years. I didn't know why she was so upset at my existence. I didn't know. And I realized in that moment as an adult woman that I represented a mistake that this woman wanted to erase from her mind. And it's not anything that's wrapped around the child in itself. It's simply just the representation of a man that I trusted with my whole heart, body, soul, and mind, and he abandoned me and brought a child into this world and forced me to take care of it by myself. I too went through that in a much different way, but yet so similar in the stance. So my heart went out to my mother. We ate. My birthday had just passed, so my mom bought me ice cream and a brownie. We ate it and we left. And my mom's been remarried since I was 3 or 4. And she remarried. She started dating my stepdad within 6 months, or maybe she said it was a year. And they married, and my mom married into a really good family. My stepdad's family was awesome at a certain point in time. And that family accepted me more than my own family did. They loved me dearly. They loved me like no other family on this planet Earth. They loved me past realms of time. They loved me past titles. They loved me past truths. They loved my simple existence. And I'm so thankful that I had that experience in my childhood. My grandfathers, both of them. My grandmother, rest in peace to all 3 of them. I know that you all are my angels and you're now my ancestors. And I know that you protect me. And I know that you're pushing me forward to do this in the forefront. So my mother remarried. My stepdad and I have had an undercurrent of a rift for some time now. But I felt like what I was doing was going to ruffle his feathers, because he's always had this antagonistic viewpoint towards my dad, because he feels like my dad actually abandoned my mom and he did such bad things to my mom, and I get it. But at the same time, like when he came into the situation, he knew what he was coming into. So it wasn't no secret. No one tried to hide anything from him, and he assumed the role of being my father, because my dad wanted nothing to do with me. When he disposed of my mother, he disposed of me too. When I was born, he didn't come to the hospital, and he didn't claim me until much after my birth. So my stepdad came in my life when I was 1. I don't know another man as my dad. I know my biological father. I went over my biological father's house as a child, raised in the environment of my, biological father, his parents, my grandparents, my brothers. But my dad is my stepdad. That's who lived in my home. That's who played the daily role. That's who checked up on me at times. That's who did the day-to-day duties of being a dad. But over the years, for whatever reason, my dad and I have grown apart. We don't see eye to eye, we don't get along, and we don't too much really like each other anymore. And that's just to be honest. I don't feel the need to sugarcoat anything or to squash my truth, because then it's not the truth. So I knew what I was doing was going to trigger him, but I had a conversation with him about it. And I could tell that it bothered him, but at the same time, I knew that he understood that he had to respect it because he was in the same position. His mother married another man while she was pregnant, and that's why I have two grandfathers. They're both my step-grandfathers, but one is his biological father and one is his stepfather, and he too was raised by his stepfather. So my stepfather was raised by his stepfather, and even my biological father was raised by his stepfather as well. So you have two men that were raised by their stepfathers, but unwilling to compromise and co-create in a space that's healthy for me as a little girl, growing into an adolescent, as a young woman, and even an adult woman. I've got the short end of a blunt fucking stick because of two men that want to sit on a mountaintop of their egos. And as I've grown older, I've just had to learn how to say no. I'm not allowing that in my life. I don't care whose ego is hurt. I came from this woman. She is my mother. And if you all want to sit and slap each other across the face with bad slurs and evil words, then go right ahead. But I got to a place in my life where I let it affect my childhood. I let it affect my upbringing. I'm no longer allowing it in my space. It's not going to affect who I am as a woman. It's just not. Well, there it goes. Oh, I can still play it. Within days of meeting with my biological father, I went to stay at my girl cousin's house, stayed over there a couple days, and my mom dropped me off over there. And on the way to drop me off, I was riding in the car, and I remember looking out the window. My mom's just driving. We got the dogs with us. And I heard the Holy Spirit speak to me and say, tell your mother Christ is coming back for her. Or tell your mother Christ is coming. Tell your mother Christ is coming. I heard it twice. And when I heard it, I rejected what I heard immediately because I was like, I just had her do this, sit down, talk about this and that. I don't want to say this to her because then she's going to really think something's wrong with me mentally. My mom is a believer, but she's a religious believer, and we know that there's a difference. My mother is a deeply spiritual woman, but she has suppressed her spirituality in conjunction with the highlight of religious, because religious supports the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is what she's been stuck under as a wife in an unhappy marriage. So I said it. I said it out loud in the car. And I had my female friend in the car with me and my mom, and she heard me say it. And I told my mom, I said, Christ is coming. And my mom's like always in between chipper and a shitty mood. It's a really funny spectrum. We're just driving and she looks over at me. She's like, oh, I know the Lord's coming. I know. And I'm like, no, mama, Christ is coming. Get your house in order. I said this to her directly. I was at my cousin's house for about 3 or 4 days. And then something said, go home. So I went home. I lived in Atlanta at the time, and I was headed to travel. I wanted to start traveling. So I was saying goodbye to my family, wrapping up these loose ends before I got on the road to travel. Within 3 days of me being home after I told my mom that Christ was coming back, one morning I woke up. The night before, my mom made spaghetti, and I had asked her to make me some spaghetti because I love when my mom makes spaghetti. It means something to me. I love my mom's spaghetti. She made turkey spaghetti, and it was a little sweet. It was so good. We sat on the couch. We watched a Julia Roberts movie, and we both fell asleep on the couch. And then eventually in the middle of the night, she woke up, went downstairs, and I went in the back room. And in the middle of the night, I was up, fumbling around, and you can hear the floors creaking. It's an older house. So I remember she came upstairs. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Nothing. I just couldn't sleep. I was just walking around, pacing." So she laid back down, and by 7 that morning, she came upstairs and she was getting ready for work. She didn't feel right. So I wake up and she's like, "I don't feel right." My dad had already left to go to work. My friend was in the other room asleep. I'm like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "I can't button my pants. My hands feel swollen." Mind you, I have been asking my mom to just take some time to herself. Take time to yourself. So I roll over, button her pants for her. Then she's moving around a little more. And she's still like, something's not right. So I get up, she lays down. I take her blood pressure. I feel rain. I call the doctor at 8 a.m. We had been trying to go through the motions for about 30 minutes, and they said that it was stroke symptoms and that they wanted me to bring her in. I immediately got nervous, and I jumped in the car and I drove her to the hospital. We got to the hospital, called my dad. My dad met me at the hospital and walks her inside, and I take the car home to tend to the dogs. She has 2 dogs. I have 2. My sister's dog was there. So we have a full house of dogs that needed to be fed and taken care of. Long story short, I immediately just thought to take the day because I was already stressed out about the situation, and I knew my dad was up there with her, and I didn't want to be up there getting in the way, being paranoid, my normal paranoid self. So I decided to take the day. By the next night at midnight, my dad had called me and was like, "Your mom, her throat started closing up." And I'm just like, "What?" By 3 a.m., they had to put a trach in her throat, and she's completely paralyzed. She couldn't move. All I could think about was the moment I was in the car with her, and the Holy Spirit spoke to me and told me to tell her, Christ is coming back. Those next 3 days of my mom being in between life and death were the scariest 3 days of my whole entire life. I've never felt anything like that in my life. Except my grandma got sick. My grandmother was a little older. She was only like 6 years older than my mom is now. So that was scary for me as well. Equally. I was only 13. This scenario, I was being 36. I have a child, it's grandma. I don't have anybody else but my mom, family-wise. And I've low-key always known that. So the doctors got her stabilized, but she has a trach in her mouth, can't talk. She's basically out of it. She can only communicate with blinking, one for yes, 2 for no. And it's just bad. They can't figure out what's wrong. Long story short, the paralysis was from head to toe, where it's like frozen in time. Not paralysis where she can't feel nothing. She can feel everything. She can hear everything. She could probably still taste. Whew. She's paralyzed. My mom has only had a hysterectomy. She had COVID shots. And my parents live close to a place called Rubbertown in Louisville that I've been telling my mom to write them letters and let them know that the pollution is so strong that it's causing people in the neighborhood to die from it. And she never did. Those are the only things that I could link to what is causing this paralysis in my mother's system, because she's not sick. She doesn't have cancer. She doesn't have an aneurysm. She doesn't have nothing, diabetes. She has high blood pressure, but she kept it underway by taking her blood pressure medicine, and this is the fate that's being ridden. For so many years, I told my mother to take care of herself, take time for yourself, go to the spa, go to the gym, take a walk the dogs, go on vacation, leave. Don't tell anybody where you're going. Just go get a massage. Just go to a library. Just do something for yourself, by yourself, all alone. And she wouldn't do it. And every time I would come home, she would tease me about, like, you need to get a job. Holding a 9-to-5 job for me is been impossible. Not because I don't want to. Hell, I want to be a regular fucking person and sometimes operate in the blissful moments of oblivion, like everybody else. Not to say that it's bad, but I wasn't gifted that in life. I can't keep a job. It never works out for me. And I'm not a bad employee. I'm punctual. I know my work. I do my job. But it doesn't work out for me. I have moles all over my arm. I'm getting moles all over my arm. Very interesting. 1, 2, 3. And most recently, she was just trying to tell me to get a job. And I was like, Mom, jobs don't care about you, because if you get sick, they don't care. So why am I going to spend my life working for someone that's not loyal to me, but they expect loyalty? So now my mom's paralyzed. She had just started this new corporate job and couldn't go to work. She had to go on long-term disability. This goes on for months, and with me being home, all I'm trying to do is take care of my mom. I don't care about anything else. I fall out with family, starting my sisters, second my dad, third my cousins, fourth aunts. And you know, they say that you see the structure of a family when someone dies or gets ill. And what I had to realize was that the foundation of my family was shit. I don't think that it always been that way, but somehow, some way, it got lost in translation, and it became that way. And I had to accept it. My stepdad treated me like utter shit. My sisters disrespected me to a point where I never wanted to see them again. My cousins turned their back on me, started gossiping about me over things that were untrue. And my aunts did nothing to protect me as women in my family. They did the bare minimum. Meanwhile, my mom is on the precipice, or she's on the line in between life and death, and I'm coping, trying to deal with that, being a mom myself, and those troubles that I have, and survive. But nobody cared. The same way no one cared when my mom wasn't taking care of herself. And I say all that to say, as a woman of color, we're not taught to take care of ourselves. I've watched my grandmother do it. I've watched my aunts do it. I've watched my sisters do it. I've watched myself do it. I've watched my friends, my cousins, other distant family, aunts, uncles. I've seen, not uncles, but uncles too. But this subject is specifically about women of color, melanated women. We don't take care of ourselves. It took me a very long time to understand that taking care of myself is not going and getting acrylics and getting a pedicure and having a spa day. Taking care of myself is going out in nature, reading a book, meditating, crying over my childhood if I need to, conversing with God, reading the Word, reading scripture, prayer. It is journaling and releasing the baggage that we've carried for so many eons that we don't know what love is. So we don't know how to love ourselves. Our fathers don't love us. They have love for us, but as long as it serves them. Our fathers don't love us. And that's a majority. I'm not saying that that is a totality. The majority of the root of the black woman's demise is the fact that her parents never protected her. My mom did everything she could to protect me. My stepdad, who's my dad, would come in as an assist. But as I became older, I realized that their protection was attached to their projection. I'll protect you if you do what I tell you to do. I'll protect you if you follow the rules. I'll protect you if you shrink yourself and stay in this shell, because that is what protection is to us. That's what we've been taught generationally, is if you shrink yourself and stay in your shell, then you're protected, so you can stay under my protection as well. But if you step outside the lines, if you color outside the lines, if you go outside the norm, if you do things that are foreign, we can't protect you. We won't protect you. And that's what I fought. I fought to stand in my truth, to speak my truth, to be in my truth when I'm never accepted for who I am. And that is the lore of the Black woman. That is the lore of the melanated woman. That is the story of our roots, of our ancestors. I'm not protected because I want to step out of the norm. My protection comes with your projection. That is what it is. When my mother got sick, a rumor started in my family. I'm from a heavily religious family, and I'll get into that later, but a rumor started in my family that I like tarot cards. I do like tarot cards, and I'm saying that on the record. I have nothing to be afraid of and no one to prove anything to. I don't worship tarot cards. I don't worship deities or entities. I worship Yahweh. But I understand communication, and I understand that messages come through tarot, messages come through oracle cards, messages come through meditation, messages come through prayer, messages come through downloads. And who are you to tell me how I get my messages when you're not messaging shit to me? Who are you to judge me when you live in sin? So because I don't look like my family, because I don't act like my family, because I don't think like my family, because I don't do as my family says, they tried to crucify me by spreading a rumor that I read tarot cards while my mother is sick. So what people will do is to take the heat off themselves. They'll find something about you that they can highlight to use you as the scapegoat, so to make me seem crazy, because this is what people want to do when they want to axe your credibility. Make you seem crazy. But the things about the chosen is we're always 10 steps ahead. Spirit gave us game before we even executed any action, so there's nothing you can do to deter us from our field. Earth is our playing field. The ethereal realms are our playing field. There is no untouched field that we can't touch. So I already knew. And my whole family fell into it. It's like they fell into the palm of my hand so I could sit and look. Almost like a water globe that I could shake. Everyone fell into it. Talk. Meanwhile, I haven't said a word. All I'm doing is trying to make sure my mother heals. It got so bad that I had no one in my hometown to support me while I was trying to deal with my mother being in between life and death, fighting for her life. So I had to leave. Forcefully and willingly, I left. I went back to Atlanta because I needed to protect my son, which is another thing that I've been battling. And in doing so, God sent strangers to help me. Because regardless of if you need financial help, mental help, support is help. And God had to send strangers in after everything I've done for everyone. So that let me know that this shit can't go. I have to move on with my life. My mother's laid up in the hospital, damn near unconscious, can't breathe on her own. I'm the only sane one in my family that even has like an ounce of a clue about spirituality. And you guys try to stop me from seeing my mom, spread rumors about me, and talk to me like I'm shit on the bottom of someone's shoe when the respect should be super high. So I removed myself. And in that time that I removed myself and I went back to Atlanta, I told myself, I am going to heal myself so that the healing that I do, my mother receives. Before this happened to my mom, I had started my meditation teaching. When it happened to my mom, I continued my meditation teaching. And after it happened to my mom, I went full throttle in my meditation teaching because I knew the root of her issue. This is why they couldn't really find anything wrong with her. The root of her issue was her neurological system, which is your nervous system. Her nervous system shut down. She was unhappy in her work, her marriage, her family life, herself, her person, her being, her existence, her role. her reality. She's miserable. And for years, I tried to talk to my mom about, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? But that generation, they don't want to hear that. If it's not a check and a Social Security, they don't want to hear about it. But the reality is what would you do in life? How do you exist in life when it's not attached to a dollar bill? Do you know how to exist? And these are the things and the questions that I would have with my mom, and I've always been the person to speak out and try to get that from the root. Because if you find out what type of woman you were birthed from, it gives you a push into the life that you're meant to follow. Even if it's opposite, even if it's the same, finding out who you came from helps direct you in where you're going. And that's why people of color are so lost, because they've erased our history. We don't even know where the fuck we come from. So how do we know where the fuck we're going? Our culture is scattered. Our belief systems are scattered. Let me calm down. So I'm back to Atlanta. Continue my meditation, teaching, continue to heal. Continue to sever the ties that I needed to sever the ties. Continue to push through and push forward in life. I came back to visit my mom. When I got back, my mother was a lot better, a lot more healed than what she was when I left. And what I saw was, my sister's an RN. I'm a healer. We're both Leos. And in my family, I'm the oldest. My sister's the youngest. She followed the doctrine. I went my own directed path. And I'm not saying any of that to say I'm unappreciative of a registered nurse, because they've been doing their job to keep my mother alive, and I'm very thankful to all of the nurses that have had a hand in caring for my mom. But what I'm saying is, when I went to the hospital and I noticed their principalities, I noticed that all of their patients become an issue to check off of a list. And then the nurses come in with the assist. In between, there's no healing done. There's nobody to assist a person in healing, because physical therapy, they do minimal. Geriatric, they do minimal. The person that works on her breathing therapy, they do minimal. But there's not an individual person that is going to speak life into her, that prays with her every day, that reminds her to look left, look right, use your spine, tell yourself you can do this. I play the SOS song, baby, you can do it, take your time, do it right, you can do it, baby. When I played that song, my mom was looking to the left, looking to the right, looking to the right, looking to the left, looking to the right, looking to the left, moving her hips, moving her shoulders. My mother's been paralyzed, but I knew how to go in that room and breathe life into her and remind her, this is not the shit that's yours. Let it go. But in my family, they think because my sister is an RN that she knows everything and she can heal my mom. She can help the doctors heal my mom. But I know my ancestors, and I know Yahweh. I have Yahweh on speed dial. I have Yeshua on speed dial. I have my ancestors on speed dial. I am directly connected to the Orishas on speed dial. But none of that matters in today. Why? Because people of color are so lost in religion and doctors and nurses that they don't even know what to do for themselves. And it's disgusting. I tell them, play water sounds for my mother. Make sure she hears meditation sounds. Let her hear nature sounds. You guys have her laying in a hospital room for the last 6 months. She hasn't seen outside, and nobody can even play nature sounds for her. Massage her body. Remind her what touch feels like. Give her love. Who can heal with no love around? It's about the fact that the enemy came in and tried to separate me from my mom when she was trying to heal, knowing that I was a huge piece in her healing. And all of the teachings that I've learned and absorbed and carried with me and teach were the exact teachings that I needed to use to help heal my mom. Those same teachings that I've been shunned for in my own family. My mom is doing much better. I don't mean to get teary-eyed or too passionate, but I say that to say, as a woman of color, take care of yourself. On a Monday, my mother was fine. By Tuesday night, she was paralyzed. None of us know what fate holds. But what I do know is that you can take control over your mind. The brain and the mind are two different things. The heart and the soul are two different things. The mind is the ethereal. The brain is the physical. The heart is the physical. The soul is the ethereal. If you do not balance the two, they will not work to coincide with one another. They will work against each other, and that's how you get dis-ease. But no one's going to teach you this in school. This is why I was miserable in grade school, because I knew the things that I was learning had nothing to do with where I was going. If women of color just understood how important it is to take care of your health, oral health, go get your teeth checked, physical health, stretch daily, right? Meditation, super simple. All you have to do is find a comfortable seated position. Breathing in, out, right? Outdoor, nature. Even if it's just touching a stick, leaves. I've been out here for almost an hour, and I can feel the healing that I'm receiving just by being in nature. We weren't born to be in hospital rooms. We were born to be in nature. And I pray that the more I preach about women of color taking care of themselves, that they learn to take care of themselves. I don't know what in the hip. I don't know. Why is this? I don't know what it would take to get the message of self-care is not superficial. Self-care is inner work. And a lot of us don't want to do the inner work. I get it. It's tiring. It's hard. But it's rewarding. It's very, very rewarding. I don't want to go too deep. I want to leave it there. I'll come back and do a part 2 eventually. I don't know when. It might be tonight. It might be tomorrow. It might be the day after that. But I know that this being eclipse season, I had to release that. I had to release that heaviness of everything that I've gone through and just talking about it in the surface. I don't need to go into details of who said what and this and that. That doesn't matter. The purpose of this is getting it out. And that's what eclipse season is about. Getting it out. Releasing old paradigms. Releasing your old ways of being. Releasing bad habits.